Great. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Trauma-Informed Finance, where empathy meets economics. My name is Najaah Yasmine Daniels. I am the proud founder and CEO of both Twice as Good LLC and the Inclusive Capital Collective. To go over our agenda quickly, we are going to do a welcome where I introduce myself and we go over some boundary settings in our space. Also, what is TIF, or Trauma-Informed Finance? We're also going to go over the 5 forms of capital, responsibility versus accountability exercise, embodiment meets economics, as well as closing commitments. So we have a full packed agenda, but we're going to move through it as best as we can. For those who are just joining us, please scan the QR code for access to the presentation. As I mentioned, my name is Najaah Yasmine Daniels. I am a social entrepreneur, a capital disruptor, and an Ifa priestess. Thank you, everyone who has been complimenting me on my jewelry. These are actually sacred and protected. They represent each of my orishas and my commitment to my spirituality. So I appreciate the compliments. I've been working across political, nonprofit, and private sectors for the past 15 years. It's been important to me to make sure that folks who look like us have access to not only capital, but power, ownership, and opportunity. I'm a liberation architect, and I believe that we can all be free as long as we are all free. And I'm talking about us in this room. I also grew up in the New York State foster care system. My mother is a Dominican woman who was deported when I was young, which sparked my interest in politics and movement work. And from there, I adopted my sisters and really learned what it was like to overcome some of the barriers and hardships that we experience as Black and brown people in the United States. I'm also the creator of Trauma-Informed Finance, which we'll be talking about, which inspired me during the COVID-19 pandemic when I was working with numerous entrepreneurs and fund managers across the country with Inclusive Capital Collective who were having a difficult time accessing the capital that they deserved and need. And last but not least, I'm also a death doula. So while we grieve a lot of the work that we do in transitions, I bring a lot of that spiritual knowledge and work to make sure that we are also taking care of our nervous systems, because that's what's under attack when we're under pressure. Let's go over some quick boundaries. Intent versus impact. So there's going to be certain things that I say or folks say in our group. I want us to be mindful of how it may land. And if we offend anyone or if I offend anyone, I am great with feedback, and I want to make sure that we hold that space together. Say the thing. If something I'm saying inspires you or you want to add to it, snap, raise your hand, do something. But this is a collective workshop. We're going to be doing things together. I'm not going to speak at you for 50 minutes. Take care of yourself. I know it's the end of the day. I'm very grateful for y'all being here. Most folks are at the beach or grabbing a drink. I would be at the beach grabbing a drink as well, but I'm here with y'all and y'all are here with me, and I feel very blessed by that. Be present if you can. If something comes up, please feel free to step out. Take space, make space. Again, be a part of the community, be a part of this interaction. And if there's any agreements or boundaries that I haven't added, feel free to mention, and I'll be happy to add. How do we feel about those bountiful boundaries? Can we hold that? Cool. What is trauma-informed finance? Trauma-informed finance, or TIF, redesigns how capital, power, and opportunity flows in an economy that centers Black and brown communities. It was coined by myself, and it addresses the root causes of financial trauma. But we integrate different aspects of movement building as well as systems change strategy to ensure that the work we are doing advances long-term stability as well as prosperity for our communities and our communities to come. So what is the TIF framework? So it's an educational tool that helps institutions understand how historical harms shape financial systems today. We've worked with certain individuals like Wells Fargo, for example, that has caused great harms to our communities, but also has been open to learning more about the harms they cause and how they can change it. We know change happens, unfortunately, slowly. So although it may not look like the impact is happening right away, please believe the impact is happening and shifts are moving. It's a capacity building model where we strengthen communities and capital innovators to actually work on building an equitable economy under our terms, not the traditional terms. And last but not least is an innovative strategy that engages investors, financial institutions, and policymakers in redesigning how capital is actually deployed and who it is deployed to. So there's 5 steps to trauma-informed finance. The first is centering lived, labored, and learned experience and expertise. So we have to recognize that community knowledge and lived experience is essential forms of expertise and necessary in financial decision making. Oftentimes, folks do not look at lived experience as a form of expertise. However, that's how we understand people who are on the ground and the day-to-day issues they're having. That's also how our policymakers are oftentimes disconnected from our communities because they don't take into account the lived or labored experiences of our communities. The second step is building an ecosystem of trust and accountability. I'm honored and proud to say that is something the Inclusive Capital Collective has done well over the past 5 years, creating collaborative environments where institutions, investors, and communities can steward capital together in a participatory way. Third, shift power in systems, disrupting traditional gatekeeping structures so we can democratize designs and also govern who benefits from these financial systems. The fourth step, design reparative financial products. We're developing catalytic capital tools as well as deploying unrestricted funds. Oftentimes when we are looking for capital, we don't have access to what I call F-up capital or fail-up capital, but we understand that other communities or individuals who don't look like us do. So why can't we have access to that as well? And last but not least, transform traditional finance. We want to dismantle the root of causing financial inequity, and we all know this is caused to racial capitalism, colonial extraction, gender and age bias, as well as systemic exclusion, which our communities face time and time again. Now we're going to do an exercise. Our integration exercise today is talking about responsibility versus accountability. So when we are responsible, responsibility is an event-focused thing. So we blame ourselves for events that aren't ours. However, accountability is the impact, and that's when we take ownership of how we respond to events. So I'm going to ask folks, since we have a good sized number of folks here, if you're not sitting next to someone, sit next to someone, and we're going to answer some questions together. The first question is, how have financial systems created harm in your community? So whatever your community looks like for you, I want y'all to talk about that for maybe 30 seconds to a minute. Or a minute, each person has 30 seconds. And if you have a larger group, I'll give you a couple of extra seconds. How have financial systems created harm in our community or in your community? Has everyone had a chance to respond, or do we need some more seconds? Wonderful. The next question is, what would finance look like if we prioritize healing? So this is gonna make y'all stretch a little bit. What would finance look like if we prioritized healing? And also, if you don't have an answer to that, feel free to sit with it. But I'm gonna ask you to text it to yourself, email it to yourself, write it to yourself. You can answer it later on, but I want us to look at finance through a healing lens. All right, y'all. And the last question for this exercise, who plays a role in shaping how capital flows or behaves? Who plays a role in shaping how capital flows or behaves?
Society. It's the old thing. It's the white boy. There's white people. It's the matriarchy. Stops with that. Yes. That's part of the global proposal. So that's these people. You think about it, starting that with this, it's so evil.
Okay, everyone. Do I have one or two volunteers to share what they discussed? It doesn't have to be the whole synopsis, but a little something something with the group. There is 5 of us in here. If y'all don't get unafraid, right? I'm like, come on, y'all. Come on. Do I have to meet y'all at the pool with a cocktail? Yes. Any questions? Yeah. Anything you want to share?
Okay, so we both agreed that the people who hold the capital are just those who can release it. Like, we're not in a position to create that in a way for the communities that we serve or the people that we know that need it, especially if they have an idea. He had talked about a book that was called Believe in You Money, where, you know, someone who might be 18-year-old and white will be easily get that Believe in You money, and you can waste the $3 million, but for us, we can't. We don't have the opportunity to fail with any kind of capital money at all, right? So we talked about that, and then we were talking about the root of like, well, why does this whole idea around capital having to have some sort of impact or return even exist? And then we started talking about how our country is founded on greed. So if that's the case, it's always going to be, well, I'm going to give you this, so you have to return this back in some sort of way that makes sense, because I have to keep up with my lifestyle or whatever that thing is that avenue is pushing towards. One of the things that I shared with my brother here was the fact that when I think about capital, I'm trying to do it in very small ways. So if I'm meeting with a stakeholder that I know has dollars to give in my community, you know, I'm not just pitching my organization. I'm saying, well, you know, I also have an amazing leader who's doing work in this space, because I know this stakeholder has $200,000 to go around. And if you're giving everybody $15,000 plus unrestricted, I'm going to use that and bring my colleagues along in their space, and everybody can get some. And I feel like that's the way right now that I could build capital for the people that I see that's doing the real work. And, you know, that's how we kind of have to move. So I don't know if I shared everything? Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Anyone on this side want to share? I told y'all. Thank you.
Well, for the third question, we also kind of talked about how the white heterosexual men are just kind of at the top of everything, and they control everything, and the patriarchy really is
White who?
the white men. And then for the second question, we talked about like our different boundaries around like healing financially. So some of us can't necessarily give to the people who aren't going to use it in ways that benefit themselves, and others of us have to escape from that cycle and break free and make the best for ourselves. And for the, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. For the first question, we talked about a lot of different things, but my answer was like the title loans, where you take $500, and if you try to give it back the next day, they say no, you owe 500 more. Right. And so you're just like already automatically on the struggle bus.
Right. Thank you for that. Anyone else to share? We all collectively agree with that? Cool. All right, y'all. Now we're going to go into the 5 forms of trauma-informed capital. Does everyone have the slide deck up? Because I would not, if you don't, just scan the QR code. Oh, it's not working? Oh, no. Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, no. Can you give me?
You know what, it could be on an Android and maybe.
Got it. Oh, sorry, Team Android. I did not know that Google was, but y'all are Google folks. Isn't Android Google?
And it has Google Slides, but no.
I'm so sorry about that.
I'm just paying attention even more.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So going back to the 5 forms of capital, I'm going to give y'all some definitions, and this is going to be helpful for the next exercise we do. So stay on your toes or link up with someone who has the slide deck. So the first form of capital that you may have heard of already throughout the conference is social capital. And I know our communities, Black and Latino communities especially, we have abundance of social capital. So what is that? Our networks, our relationships, the communities that we build trust with and within, that enables us to collaborate, but also gives us the opportunity to have shared prosperity. Our financial capital, we're all familiar with that. Where's the money? Show me the money, right? But beyond that, show me the money unrestricted. Show me the believe in me capital. Show me the fail up capital. And don't put any red tape, anything. Just give me the money like you will give a white man, a white woman, someone who doesn't look like me. Emotional capital. When we talk about emotional capital, I want you to think about emotional intelligence, but also capacity to hold this complexity and the trauma that we experience. Because outside of the trauma that we experience as a community, we also experience trauma individually. So do we have the emotional capital to withhold that because it's necessary? Spiritual capital, or the real AI, ancestral intelligence, that's our values, our cultural wisdom, our practices that we grew up with, but also the traditions that we create. And last but not least, our intellectual capital, or our intellectual property. That's our knowledge, our expertise, our innovation that many people pick our brains for, quote unquote, for free. That many people take from us for free. A lot of these institutions and organizations are holding everyone's intellectual capital. But did you see any financial return from that? More times than not, you don't. So I have another exercise for y'all. If you are sitting next to someone you spoke to already or no, I want you to sit next to somebody else. Sorry, y'all, we're gonna break this up. And I told you, there's only like 5 of us in here, so it should be quite simple. Organize yourselves. Speak to someone you haven't spoke to. Everyone looked like they showered today, brushed their good teeth. Yeah, let's get some hobnobbing going. So we talked about the 5 forms of capital, and I'll repeat anything you need me to repeat. But for this exercise, we're going to break it down a little more. So first and foremost, are we done with intros? I don't want to intro. So with this exercise, as we go over the 5 forms of capital, we're going to break it down to different groups. So the first group we're going to talk about is your community. Again, whatever that looks like for you. So I want you to rate. You can do it verbally, you can write it down, but I want you to rate where each form of capital shows up in your community. So for example, in my community, we have a 5 when it comes to social capital. But then when we come to financial capital, it might be like a 2 or 3. But then when we get to spiritual capital, I'm back at a 5. I also want to point out that there's 5 forms of capital because each capital is worth 20%. So while we're rating or talking about each form of capital, I want you to think about how powerful it is to lose or have little of the 20%. So if you're missing a couple of forms of capital, you're missing a lot of money. So we're going to first talk about our communities, and then we'll get to the next. And I'll give y'all 2 minutes for that, so a minute per person. All right, everyone, let's get back together collectively. I hope that was fruitful and helpful. The next question, I still want y'all to share with each other because we're going to speak more about institutions. So I want you to do the same exercise we did just now. We're going to rate 1 to 5 or your 20%, however it looks like for you. But we're going to discuss what that looks like at your current job or career. So we're not talking about you, we're talking about the institution you serve or work with. If you're an entrepreneur, then you're looking at yourself. But other than that, I want y'all to talk to each other about where or how each form of capital shows up at your job or career. And I'll give you 2 minutes for that as well. All right, everyone, we're gonna get to the next question. The third question is going to be individual. So I'm going to ask that you take out a pad, your phone, whatever you use to scribe, but this is going to be for yourself. So open your notepad in your phone or open your actual notepad, whatever works for you, but this is going to be self. And I'm going to give y'all about 1.5 minutes or 2 to do this. We're doing the same exercise again, but now you're doing it for yourself. Anyone familiar with the wellness wheel? Yes. Yeah? Okay. This is going to be your financial wellness wheel. And this is for yourself. And I want you to really look through each form of capital. I'm happy to share them. But each form of capital, and truly rate yourself. Not to blame yourself, but to give yourself grace and space to expand and be better. Any questions about this one? All right, y'all. Let's get it. 2 minutes. one. We're not sharing this one. This is individual. But you can give each other emotional capital support by sitting next to each other, the energy. Because I want y'all to be honest and real with yourselves. And sometimes when you're honest and real with yourself, it's for yourself. You can't always share that with others. So 2 minutes. All right, everyone. We're on a countdown, so I want to make sure we have time. The last part of this exercise, if you're with me, the last part of this exercise is to create one commitment that you will implement in 2026. We got a lot of time left, y'all. This is March. So in the next 9 months, what's one commitment to your community, to your work, and to yourself that you will implement this year? To your community, to your work, and to yourself. Let me know if you have any questions. And you have about a minute for that, maybe 2. And also, when you are doing your commitments, please don't overgive. You know your capacity. Set a commitment that you're actually gonna follow through with. If you're not gonna follow through with it, then it's not a commitment. You have a question? Yeah. Oh. You're going to create one commitment for each group. So commitment for your community, commitment for your work, and commitment for yourself. But make it realistic. I don't want to hear I'm going to feed 300 people. Da, da, da. You not. You may want to. Right. You may want to, but you not. Maybe I'm going to support and feed 5 people. I think you can do that. Maybe even more, but be realistic because you want to do it. All right, everyone, we're going to come back together as a collective. Now we're going to move again. If you're with me, fist up. If you're with me, fist up. If you're with me, fist up. Wonderful. All right, so everyone's going to get up and move next to someone that they haven't met. This is our last couple of minutes together, y'all. Let's make it count. Let's make it count. And you're going to stay standing unless you're unable to. So we're going to move and stand next to someone unless your feet hurt, your back hurt, you're unable to, because we want to take care of ourselves, right? Also, make some space. Like, stand next to the person, but make sure you got some space between y'all a little bit. It's like dance class. Fingertips. Has anyone heard of emotional freedom technique or EFT tapping? Ooh, one person, my counselor. Yes, 2 people. All right, y'all. So we're going to do some tapping. But beforehand, I'm going to explain to you what that is. So as I mentioned, the work I do as a death doula and a priestess is very important that we embody what we talk about, right? So the tapping is a technique that points or hits our acupuncture points that allows us to ease any anxiety, any traumatic memories, or any discomfort we feel in our bodies. Collectively, everyone seems to be doing well, but also you don't know how your nervous system is taking this. And I want to make sure before we leave our sacred space together that we all both integrate and embody what we learn, but we also allow our nervous systems to rest so we can enjoy the rest of the day, right? EFT, emotional freedom technique. No worries, EFT, we doing some tapping, y'all. So you can go along on your phone or you can follow me. We're doing a call and response. So the first technique, I don't know if y'all can see this, but I have my beautiful Afro-Latina here to support me. So I'm going to do the motion. I'm going to ask that you do the motion with me and then you repeat what I say, okay? So the first motion is going to be on top of our heads. And we're going to say, I will not sacrifice my health or well-being for a capitalist society. And we're going to start with the top of our head. So let's use our 2 fingers but usually 2 fingers. And we're going to say, I will not sacrifice my health and well-being for a capitalist society. And let it integrate. Now we're gonna do our eyebrows. So right up here, get the tapping. I will not internalize blame for systemic failure. I will not internalize blame for systemic failure. And feel that. Then we're gonna go to the side of our eyes, so here, right? It's okay if my standards of success are different from others. It's okay if my standards for success are different from others. Then we're gonna go under your eye. It's okay if what I used to define as success is no longer. It's okay if what I used to define as success is no longer. Then we're gonna go under our nose. I'm allowed to spend time on things that produce joy. I am allowed to spend time on things that produce joy. Then we're gonna do our chin. I deserve to be creative, even if I create something society does not deem beautiful. I deserve to be creative, even if I create something society does not deem beautiful, because it's for us, right? Then we're gonna do our collarbone. I am not a failure for needing support. Community is needed for growth. I am not a failure for needing support. Community is needed for growth. And last but not least, I like this because I'm from the Bronx originally, so you know we do the BX, but you're gonna do it where your acupuncture points are. I'm gonna do this because I'm from the Bronx. No, we're gonna do the karate chop, I am more than enough, and I am always enough. And I need y'all to say this a couple of times. I am more than enough, and I am always enough. I am more than enough, and I am always enough. I am more than enough, and I am always enough. I am more than enough, and I am always enough. I'm very blessed to spend this space and time with y'all. I know it was the last panel workshop of the day, but thank you for spending space and time with me. If you have access to the slide deck, my information is there, also with some next steps. Please connect me with organizations, groups, events that can benefit from trauma-informed finance. I also would love to stay connected and speak to y'all again. And my last request, are folks okay with taking a quick group photo before we go? This is my first conference with you all, so I would love to commemorate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're gonna do it in front of, thank you everyone.